Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, yeah. Bill, you had better win, buddy. He has become the butt of every party joke out there. This thing's exploded on him, and North Carolina is probably regretting paying him tens of millions of dollars to come there because they didn't realize that it was a 2-for-1 deal, that he was going to bring his 24-year-old girlfriend, which, look, if you want to have a 24-year-old girlfriend, more power to you, buddy. But if you're going to let her run your life and interfere with your job as head coach of North Carolina, people are going to have a problem with that. And it's everywhere. We're also going to talk about Rick Barnes. He's got some NIL frustrations, but as usual, I never bury the lead. Let's get right into this Bill Belichick thing. Now, the big story out there is Belichick is seeking outside help from the fallout from the CBS interview. They called it a fiasco. And most stories are talking about how his reputation has taken a hit from the bizarre interview on CBS Sunday morning. And he's talking to Chicago Bears Vice President of Communications, Brandon Faber, to see about taking over for Belichick and his PR. He said nothing has been completed or formalized so far. Yeah, because Jordan, his girlfriend, has caused nothing but confusion and trouble for him. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to be on Hard Knocks, which would have given a ton of publicity to North Carolina, helped them with recruiting, all of that. And that got canceled. And the reason it got canceled says Jordan Hudson was instrumental in ending Hard Knocks for North Carolina. It says the Athletic reported that Jordan Hudson, his girlfriend, played an instrumental role in the show being canceled, citing industry sources that she wanted to be heavily involved in the project. Now, what I'm hearing is she wanted to be one of the executive producers, which is kind of crazy, honestly. What in the world is she going to do producing Hard Knocks? That's a program that's been going on for years on ESPN, and you got to know what you're doing. And obviously what she wanted to do was just control everything because that's her thing. And I'll show you the prime example if you haven't seen the interview.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the philosophy.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
Sorry, I just thought it'd be nice if people knew we were a couple.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
Yeah, needless to say, she's calling the shots, and having somebody hanging over your shoulder, controlling everything. Bill Belichick needs to be able to coach. And he's over here, I don't even know what he's doing anymore. And to say people have been having fun at his expense, here's one that says, Bill puts his girlfriend in the pack and play. Here's another one, says that she's been eyeing Lou Holtz as her next boyfriend. Of course, you know somebody's going to pull this up. Said, here's Bill after the interview. And folks, it's gotten so bad that SNL got involved.
This order will make it socially acceptable for a man in his 70s to date a 24-year-old.
That's right. We're calling it the Belichick Law. We're going to make girlfriends young again, okay? Old men can now date far younger women. We like that. It's hot.
Yeah, Bill, this has been a cluster F of all time, and you're going to have to do something with your girlfriend. She needs to be put to the side somewhere and let her do her thing, and you focus on coaching, because this has really gotten embarrassing, and you'd better win, because they're not going to put up with this at North Carolina if you're losing and you've got the entire country laughing at you. I'm sure that's not what – I just can't believe it. I mean, when you hire Bill Belichick to be your head coach, the last thing in the world you think you're going to have is some PR disaster with some young girl doing all this crazy stuff. I mean, that's like the most professional, boring guy on the planet. We're on to Pittsburgh. He won't answer any questions. We're on to Pittsburgh. We're on to Pittsburgh. He's famous for that. Never laughs, never does anything. If he wants to go through it's not a midlife crisis. This would be an old age crisis. Go have it. Go have fun. You got money, you got all that, but you can't coach a big time program like North Carolina and then put her smack dab in the middle of it and let her control the PR. That's just not going to work. So I see this blowing up in it's already blown up in his face, but if he goes 4-8 or 5-7, it's going to get ugly at North Carolina. $10 million a year for this nonsense. Now we need to talk about Rick Barnes. Now, Rick's done a really good job in the transfer portal, brought in some big-time players, number 2 player in the country, a Mint, who they paid a small fortune for, and then also Gillespie out of Greenville, Tennessee, my hometown, great guard. He's bringing in some real players, and he's almost finished. He's actually got room for one more player, and I think he's waiting for Gainey to find out if he gets a 5th year. And then, of course, if the NCAA settlement goes through, he'll have 2 more spots on top of that. Now, here's the thing. It's usually not a good idea to just totally pack your team with a bunch of athletes because they're going to sit at the end of the bench and be mad. He only went with 11 last year, which actually almost backfired on him because he got one guy hurt, another guy left the team. He was down to 9 guys. Then he had 2 guys injured for a period of time. He was down to 7. So he's probably going to be a little bit more careful this year and do 12 or 13 to give himself a little bit more room. But he was complaining about NIL because at one point he thought he had the ultimate transfer portal team. He had a Mint. He had Gillespie. He was trying to get his shooting guard partner from Maryland, which was Rice. Thought he had him. And they had offered him a pretty good penny. I think it was around, between $1.5 and $1.8 million, which would have been really a lot of money for a shooting guard. And USC offered him a lot more. And in this story, he discusses it. And that individual is Rodney Rice. And here's a little video explaining his frustration.
We have a limit we're going to. Okay. And if somebody else wants, and it's happened, it's happened this year. We've been involved with guys that truly wanted to come to the University of Tennessee, but they were looking for more money than that we were able to provide. And because of us having to build our roster the best way that we could. So, yeah, that happens. Oftentimes you hear prospects say it's not going to be about the money, but more times than not, when there's a big discrepancy there, I get it. I totally get it. But we have to believe in our program, what we have in place, and we know how far we're willing to go with each prospect, and that's the cutoff. And if someone else offers them more, we would say, hey, good luck. We just can't get there.
And Rice actually wound up getting a $3 million NIL package from USC. And I believe Tennessee had offered him like 1.6 to 1.8. And Rice called the coach and he said, I want to play for Tennessee. I want to be there with my buddy, Jacoby Gillespie. And he said, can you get me more money? Because he knew going there and getting $3 million at USC would really be like getting 2.4 to 2.5 because you got to pay 14% state taxes on that, which would have been $420,000. So that gets you down around 2.5. And then it costs 70% more to live out there. So if Tennessee could have got to 2.4 or something like that, he would have transferred to Tennessee, but they just couldn't pull the trigger on that. They were at 1.8, and they don't have unlimited money. They're not Texas. But Tennessee has fielded a great team for next year. They're going to be very competitive. Easily, I think they'll be as good as this year, maybe better. But with the NIL going up like it is, and a lot of teams are spending the revenue sharing already. For example, I brought up Texas. They're spending around $40 million because they're going ahead and spending the revenue sharing money on top of the $20 million they're going to spend, which they did last year. And I showed you this. This was last year's football spending best estimates, and Texas was at $22 million. So if you add the 20.5, let's say 15 of it was going to football, they're already at 37. I think they're going to be well in excess of 40 million. They had the number 1 recruiting class last year, 5 stars, over a dozen 4 stars. And then all the 5 stars they've got on that team, every one of them is going to demand $1 million. So I bet they're over $40 million. But we should find out a lot over the next week or two. And if you're not aware, Saban actually asked the president to do an executive order to do something about NIL, which, again, who knows how that's going to play out. I covered that yesterday. Anyway, That's the big news today that's going on. The Bill Belichick disaster, which is, I cannot believe he's let this just totally get out of hand. But it is what it is. Yep. And Rick Barnes, look, he's doing fine, but he's frustrated. He almost had the perfect team, and he knows it. He wants a natty before he retires. You know, he's in his 70s now, although crap, that guy's in such good shape. I wouldn't mind him coaching to 75, 76. You know, coach 3 or 4 more years, no problem. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, hit this little button right there. It won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video. YouTube, thanks for enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk J.
I'll be back.